Hi people. So hopefully the sound will be okay on this. Before I upload it, I will double check. I'm going to read out a report from the Times. This is from the 29th of March, and it's not too long, so bear with me. I'm going to read out the report as usual, and then offer some of my thoughts. The report doesn't mention the correspondent, and this is the report, as I say, from the 29th of March. Trans cyclist faces Olympic winner. A transgender athlete who has recently become eligible to compete in women's events is set to compete against some of Great Britain's leading female cyclists this week. Dawn Westerby actually is the reporter. Emily Bridges, 21, has been included on the entry list for the National Omnium Championships to be held at the Derby Arena on Saturday. So that's Saturday past, along with Dame Laura Kenny, the five-time Olympic champion. Last month, Bridges, who began hormone therapy last year, won the men's points race at the British University Championships in Glasgow. She is now able to comply with British cycling's requirement to have had testosterone levels above 5 nanomoles per litre for a 12-month period. Before she began her transition, Bridges set a national junior men's record of 25 miles and was selected in 2019 onto British Cycling Senior Academy, the pathway for Olympic hopefuls. The record of 47 minutes 27 seconds was more than 2 minutes quicker than the female senior record over 25 miles of 49 minutes 28 seconds held by Hayley Simmons. Bridges recently told Cycling Weekly that she had always hoped to be able to compete against women. It was always the plan, she said. After starting hormone therapy, I didn't want to race in the male category any more than I had to. It sucks racing as a man when you're not one. It was quickly apparent that that was the wrong category for me. The inclusion of transgender athletes in the women's sport has become a controversial subject. If someone has been through male puberty, that is not reversible, Fiona McEnena, sport campaign director for Fair Play for Women, said. British Cycling updated its policy on transgender inclusion in January after wide-ranging consultation, while conceding that further scientific research into the subject is required. British Cycling said, "We believe that the updated policy reflects the current evidence available to us. However, we acknowledge that more research into this area is required." In September, the Sports Council's Equality Group delivered guidance for community sports, stating that testosterone suppression is unlikely to guarantee fairness between transgender women and native females in gender-affected sports. This is the report. And there's another report linked to that underneath. Well, actually, there's two others. Another report, Can a Woman Have a Penis? Don't ask me that question, says Starmer by Chris Smith. This is referring to the fact that Keir Starmer was asked a question, a straightforward question, can a woman have a penis? And Starmer wouldn't answer, and it's not the first time he's kind of sidestepped this question. Um, if I were a political leader, I'd give a straight answer. I would say I believe that a woman is an adult human female, and that's it. And if trans people got offended by that, that's too bad. But it's a very sad state of affairs when the leader of a major party, a man who aspires to be prime minister of the country, cannot define a woman. It's just um, it's just very sad. I mean, Starmer dismisses these sort of questions as trivial or sensationalistic, but they're not. They're really not because, and it isn't just Starmer, a good portion of the Labour Party will beat around the bush on this issue. Um, Not for the first time, Labour is divided. There are Labour women MPs, biological women MPs who take issue with this. Um, there was also a story in the States. I'm going to get the name up of transgender swimmer. If you just bear with me a second, I'll just get that name correct. And that caused controversy. If you just bear with me a second. The Cincinnati.com reports opinion both sides are getting it wrong on transgender swimmer Leah Thomas. So this swimmer won a race. The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, apparently congratulated the runner-up, and the swimming community has been quite outspoken in this. Female swimmers have said that it's basically damaging their opportunities. Um, just so I make my position clear, I'm not neutral on the subject. I believe that biology matters. And my question would be, if you allow trans women to compete in cycling and swimming, it isn't going to be long before an argument is made, well, it should also be in combat sports, boxing, you know. So you can have a situation where someone who was a biological man can legally punch a biological woman in the face as part of a sport. I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with mixed matches to begin with, like male female matches. I don't think that should ever be sanctioned. For many reasons. The average male is stronger than the average female. Also, from a practical point of view, I believe that a biological male in a boxing match uh, is likely to hold back because, I mean, he actually, in that situation, this is something that isn't often looked at. In that situation, if he wins, well, then he is a thug who beats women, and if he loses, he was beat by a woman. So it's actually difficult for a male to be in that position. Although I think any self-respecting biological male shouldn't agree to be in that position. But in terms of the trans issue, I agree with fair play for women. Someone who had male puberty, no amount of surgery changes biological fact. I do believe that research that has looked into the mental health side of this has been sidelined. I believe that any other condition where you basically amputate part of your body would be classed as a mental health condition. I mean, we look at Vincent van Gogh, who famously cut off his own ear. He was clinically depressed. That was seen for what it was. He suffered clinical depression. Now, if a biological man wants to surgically remove his penis because he believes he is a woman, um, it just happens. It's legal. It happens. There is a process. I'm not saying it's simple. There is a process. I understand they have to live as a woman, and there's a whole process to that. But it's basically hailed as brave and independent, and anyone who questions it is labeled a transphobic bigot. There is not enough focus, I think, put on people who have gender reassignment surgery and then regret it. And any research that has been done has been scaled back or lost funding or been vilified as being somehow transphobic. I think it is compared wrongly to so-called gay therapy. But there is a difference. I don't think you could compare sexual orientation to gender reassignment. One is involving surgery, the other isn't. People are born gay. You don't. I watched Pete Buttigieg, the American Transportation Secretary, who is one of the first openly gay cabinet members, saying quite poignantly, this was a documentary film that was made about his bid for the White House, that had he taken some sort of pills or something that would have made him not gay, he would have done so. And as he put it, thank goodness he never done that. Um, Whereas with the trans issue, again, I respect the fact that trans people go through significant personal turmoil, and it must be awful. I'm not unsympathetic to that. It must be awful. But there's a few things. Firstly, there is a militant trans lobby who don't think twice about issuing violent threats, um, like the mob who gathered outside J.K. Rowling's home, um, and who threaten anyone who thinks differently. Um, I think that needs to be challenged. I think that the dogma needs to be challenged. This idea that you have to call something, we're basically changing terminology. I use the term trans women to refer to people who've had a male to female transition. Are they women? I just don't accept that. I just don't. I believe a woman is a biological adult female. Um, Legally, a trans woman is recognized as a woman, but I believe that biology and fact matters. And, no amount of sentiment on the subject, no amount of surgery will change the fact that someone born biologically male um, is not a biological woman. They're just not. That doesn't mean we should be cruel. It doesn't mean we should be unsympathetic to what they've went through in terms of gender dysphoria. But I think that the big problem I have with this whole debate, and it's particularly poignant in the area of sports, it's also significant in issues like criminal justice, where you have, for example, someone who is a male who's transitioned to a trans woman commits a crime, they're then sent to a woman's prison. That's obviously a problem. Um, Now, if they have had the surgery, it's less of a problem. But if they have not had surgery and they're sent to a woman's prison, there's an obvious issue there with intimate conditions, that people are living in. Um, that's an obvious problem. But I think there is another issue that needs to be recognized, which is we are now talking about um, the idea that someone can simply call themselves a trans woman. They may not even have had surgery. This is very problematic. Another term I have a big problem with is trans children. Now, in the UK, legally, you have to be 16 to have the operation. So the very concept of trans children, I think, is quite troubling that that has been normalized. I think you could have children who are confused, who are perhaps struggling with their identity, who are confused about puberty and other such issues. But trans children is a misnomer because legally you cannot have gender reassignment surgery until you're 16. So it's a misnomer and it shouldn't be popularized. I do think in some cases it's parents pandering to a child. For example, you could have a little boy who plays with dolls and who is more interested in traditionally feminine things. Now, does that mean that he is a trans child? No, it could just mean that he will grow up to be an effeminate gay man, and that's fine. Parents shouldn't force that child into gender conformity, but there's so many issues around this that are contentious. Um, One of them is trans people will often say that the trans lobby will often say they refuse to accept society's rigid gender roles. Yet it's kind of ironic because they simultaneously insist that gender definitions matter and they demand to be seen as a woman or a man. The other side isn't so much explored, that is female to male transitioning. Um, it's more, most of the debate and the controversy tends to lie in male to female transitions. But what really bothers me about this is the accompanying totalitarian streaks that we are seeing, or totalitarian tendencies, by which I mean the behaviour of the militant trans lobby, by which I mean threats of legal actions against anyone who thinks differently. In Canada, not long ago, there were threats of actual criminal liability if you use the wrong pronoun. I think that is deeply troubling. I accept that a trans person may be offended if the wrong pronoun is used. I do not think that, for example, in this country, police resources should be wasted on going to someone's house because they've used the wrong pronoun online. This does not mean I think that trans people should be bullied and ridiculed. I think there are serious issues involved, like gender dysphoria. But I have a big problem with laws being used to sanction free speech except in extreme circumstances. For example, if someone is issuing threats or committing treason, but using the wrong pronouns. Um, if a trans person is being bullied online, they should block the person who's doing it. or retort in kind, call them names. But I have a problem with involving the police for online verbal mudslinging. It's not pleasant. It probably shouldn't be done. But I really think police resources should be spent investigating violent crimes and actual harassment. Now, if the trans person is a victim of a hate crime because they're a trans person, that's a serious crime and it should be treated in a serious way. Um, of course, it has to be confirmed that that is a motivation. For example, if a trans person is a victim of a mugging, that might not be anything to do with the fact that they're trans. It might just be they were in the wrong place at the wrong time and the mugger took advantage of that. But if it is a motivating factor and transphobic language is used, then yeah, of course, it should be treated seriously, treated as a hate crime. Um, but I am definitely on the side that biology does matter. I think when it comes to sports, we need to seriously look at a third category where trans people can compete. And I think honestly, it's the best compromise because that way they're not forced to compete as men if they don't see themselves as men. But likewise, they're not. It's not a case of the rights of a minority superseding the rights of the majority of women to feel that it's unfair competition. Um, I think the rights of the majority should trump the rights of a very vocal minority. So have a third category. Have a third category. We have trans people competing against one another. I honestly think it's the best compromise. I don't know what the sort of numbers are, if there's even enough, for example, trans cyclists to do that. I mean, at a competitive level. Um, but I think it is fundamentally wrong that women are being bullied into silence, being smeared as transphobes, and basically losing out on their potential because someone who was a biological man is is being treated as a woman when they're really not. They're a trans woman. Um, and no amount of hurt feelings or sentiment will change that fact. It just won't. I do think that the legal side of this, or there's a real threat to free speech, basically. For all I know, um, not long from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, even talking about a biological woman could be a criminal offence. So I could be charged for making this video, but I am not making this video to be hurtful or to denigrate trans people. I'm making it because I feel strongly that it is wrong to bully women because they're insisting that biology matters. I believe it's wrong more broadly to criminalize people for insisting that pronouns have significance in the sense of a man is a man, a woman is a woman. As for me personally, I've known one or two trans people in my life. In a charity shop I volunteered in a few years ago, one of my colleagues was a trans woman. Now, I used the pronoun she out of respect, but if she was to put me on the spot and say, I am a woman and I demand that you see me as a woman, I'm going to say, well, no, actually, you can't force me to do that. Um, I mean, this gets into all sorts of realms, and this is why it isn't actually a trivial issue. I've heard that now lesbian women are being smeared as transphobes because they're refusing to be attracted to or um, date trans women. But why would they? A trans woman is someone who was a biological man. A lesbian woman is a woman who's sexually attracted to other women. So why should she be bullied into being attracted to trans women just to prove that she's not a transphobe? By the same token, why should a straight man, um, date a trans woman, because he should prove he's not a transphobe? Personally, no, I would never do it. If I don't care how beautiful they were. I mean, take for example the Kafuis in I think I'm pronouncing that right, ladyboys in Thailand. Some of them are very beautiful, and they're more beautiful than some women. And unlike some cross dressers in the West, I know it's not the same thing, but they really, if you saw them in the street, they look like women. Um, But would I date someone who I knew was once a biological male? I just wouldn't do it. No, because I'm a straight man. I'm attracted to women, and nothing will change that fact. I don't care how beautiful they were. I would just feel uncomfortable about it. I couldn't divorce that fact from the situation. Um, I just couldn't. That doesn't mean I hate the person. They might be a nice person. They might be sincere. They might be generous. Um, but you cannot dictate to people that they should be attracted to someone else. I would link this to this obnoxious idea that people should only date their own race. Or another one is the fat acceptance movement, where you get overweight people demanding that people find them attractive. That's obnoxious. Now they can say, I don't want to be bullied, I don't want to be ridiculed. Fair enough. What they cannot do is demand that people find them attractive. Something like attraction, you just cannot dictate to others what they should and shouldn't be attracted to unless it's involving children. And why is that the exception? It's the exception because children don't have the mental maturity to make a decision like that. That's why we rightly have laws against it. But when it comes to adults, I believe basically people should be allowed to be attracted to whoever they want. I guess the only exception is if they're cheating on their boyfriend or girlfriend or they're married. That's obviously a moral issue. But um, ultimately, I think people should be flexible in that regard, and that extends to not being dictated to. So trans people shouldn't dictate to others that you must find me attractive, otherwise you're a transphobe. I think that's obnoxious in the extreme, and it is one of the many areas where this is problematic. Okay, I'll wrap this up, but I think it's very unfortunate that Keir Starmer is being politically correct on this. It's not overly surprising. He's a very politically correct guy, and I'm not at all surprised that he can't give a straight answer. Um, I mean, does he really think that saying, I don't know what his personal view is. It's obvious he's being politically correct. I don't know what his personal view is. But if he was to say, I believe a woman is a biological adult female, is that really stirring up hatred against trans people? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. Now, if he was to say trans people aren't real women, maybe that's more provocative. But it's a crazy situation where the leader of a major party cannot define what a woman is. And the paradox of this, of course, is Labour's supposed history of feminism. And, Labour women must be in a real. I think there's a split. I think there are those who pander to this mentality, then there's those who are disparagingly called um, TERFs or trans exclusionary radical feminists. Um, I'm no fan of third wave feminism, but on this issue, I'm sympathetic to their argument because I think it's absurd to tell women that they're somehow transphobes if they insist biology matters. And it matters for all the reasons I've laid out. Anyway, that's my take. Let me know your thoughts.